Welcome to the VU Meters YouTube channel. I'm your host Rich, and in this video, we'll be talking about Stone Temple Pilots' debut album, Core, in the Analog Productions Atlantic 75 series pressing. We'll talk about the packaging, the vinyl, most importantly the sound quality, and I'll give you a quick comparison before giving you my final thoughts of this pressing of a now iconic grunge album. This 2LP 45 RPM edition comes housed in a gatefold. It is made of thick cardboard, and it's a tip-on style jacket. These are numbered. I got number 502. I didn't subscribe, but I ordered these the day that they came out. I ordered a whole bunch of Atlantic 75s, including a lot of this 90s vinyl, which is some of the music that I grew up with, and it is a gap in my collection. And another thing with this, there is no bends or crease or corner dings or any of that with Analog Productions. They are some of the best shippers out there. They ship these things to survive a nuclear blast. One thing to note with this jacket, and the only other one I have like this from the 75 series, is it's sort of a matte finish on it. All the others were more of a high gloss. The only two that I have, of quite a few that I've ordered, that have this matte finish is the Hootie and the Blowfish Cracked Rearview Mirror and the Stone Temple Pilots Core. This vinyl was pressed at Quality Record Pressings, or QRP, which is Analog Productions' pressing plant. As with almost all the vinyl I've received from them over the years, this came completely flat and dead quiet. And taking a look at the dead wax that vinyl, you'll see RKS and Sterling. For Ryan K. Smith, it's Sterling Sound. If you go on the Acoustic Sounds website, it notes that Ryan K. Smith mastered this from the original master tape. And now on to the most important part, the sound. If you want to know about the equipment that I listen on and the room I listen in, I'll include a link below to my room tour video. I dropped the needle on this and was welcomed by Dead and Bloated. It provided a nice wide sound stage, as well as some really good deep bass that never got flabby. The guitars had a nice natural ring and decay to them, as did the higher end on the cymbals. Scott Weiland's vocal was nice and locked in the center. All in all, I was really impressed. I did notice, however, after listening to this a few times through and the rest of the album, that it was a little bit compressed. On to one of the singles released from this album, Sex Type Thing, there was a good balance of lows and highs. Scott's vocal was there, but it was big and wide and huge. It wasn't that like locked in natural center vocal that you heard on Dead and Bloated. One of the things with this is it was much more compressed even than Dead and Bloated. On my dB meter that I have beside me when I listen to it, between the loud and quiet parts of it, there was about a 4 dB difference. So definitely that 90s brick wall type of mix. On to Wicked Garden, Scott's vocal again locked back into focus. The drums were nice and clear and defined, and the space in between them and that drum fill at the end of the song was a really cool effect where you could almost feel the drums moving across from one speaker to another. On to No Memory, which is a song that honestly I haven't listened to in years. It had great deep bass and a really natural guitar tone. You could hear the reverb and the space around the guitar, and even the fingers moving along the strings. It really presented much more of a someone playing guitar in the room with you type of feeling. On to another single, Creep. We had deep bass with this. Scott's vocal again was locked in the middle. He had good separation between his lead vocal and the background vocals. Even in parts of the song, which I like to call the John Wayne Bobbitt part, who this song was not written for, but honestly it should have been, there was still that great separation between the background vocal and the lead vocal. On to Piece of the Pie, again, another song I really haven't listened to in years. I got that deep bass, better imaging again, not nearly as compressed. I noticed that between the radio singles or things that were mixed for a single and some of the deeper tracks in the album, that they were not nearly as compressed. The guitars had a nice natural overdriven tone. Onto another single, Plush. It had a great band setting. Really good imaging where you could hear all the different band members in their own defined space. It wasn't as compressed as some of the other singles, and it had really better attack on the muted guitar. On other pressings and other recordings of it that I heard, it sounded almost more like a scratching or a ticking sound. On this one, you could hear that it was really a muted guitar making that sound. On to Wet My Bed. Again, great chimey guitars. Another song I haven't listened to in a while, Cracker Man. Throws the background vocal. It's far away and detailed. You could really hear the space in between the vocal performance. And on to what was one of my favorite songs, the way it was presented on this pressing, Where the River Goes. Great low end. Guitar sounded amazing and natural. Good distinction between the two guitars in the left and right channel. And they were really in their own defined space, especially during the solos. And the rest of the imaging didn't move. Sometimes I've noticed with these tracks as they get a little bit busier, and this is just on vinyl or mixing in general, you have a sense where like the imaging and soundstage starts to shift around or things like move within their space. But this didn't happen here. Everything stayed well defined in its own space. So those are my thoughts on the sound with examples from a few songs. Now, I'm going to do a quick comparison with the only other vinyl pressing of this I own. Now, a quick comparison with the only other pressing I own of this album. And it's a Walmart pressing. I know, but it is pressed at Optimal in Germany. And if this was a beauty contest, this one wins hands down easily. It's a really nice splatter vinyl. Originally, when this album came out, it was mixed for CD, so it's 53 minutes. That's a big ask for any album, even if you're cutting it at 33. So on a single disc, there's a lot of music crammed in there. One of the trade-offs that they made is it is cut really quiet, which means I have to turn my preamp up really high, which can introduce some background noise. So I'm going to give a comparison through a few songs. Dead and Bloated, a little less sparkle and high end on the cymbals. Scott's vocal was big, but not as focused. On Sex Type Thing, it was super compressed. My only minor criticism, which I don't think has anything to do with the mastering of the Atlantic 45, more of the original mixing of the song, was how compressed it was. So there was a, plus or minus 4 to 5 dB swing on the Atlantic 75. This was like less than 2. It was just coming at you over and over again at the same volume. Wicked Garden, the drums at the end were probably the best part on this mix too, but it wasn't as clear and defined as that drum fill from the right to the left was on the Atlantic 75. On No Memory, this is where you started to notice the background noise. It became an issue because it was turned up so high. Similarly with Creep, it did get a little muddy during the John Wayne Bobbitt Half the Man I Used to Be section, where like the lead and background vocal were really mixing in together. Similar thing with Piece of the Pie. You don't hear like the harmonics and overtones of the guitars, and there was some background noise at the end. Plush was all about Scott's vocals, but it was at the expense of everything else. Songs like Cracker Man, that background vocal wasn't as far or as distinctly separated as it was on the Atlantic 75. Where the River Goes, which was my favorite song on the Atlantic 75 and something I'm going to be listening to a lot more and, for my own fault, have not listened to in the last few years. Background noise is really an issue in the quieter parts. Imaging not nearly as defined. So in conclusion, am I happy with this pressing? Absolutely. Would I recommend it? Wholeheartedly. But there is one thing that no mastering engineer or pressing plant can overcome, and that's the original mix. This was 53 minutes of music from the early 90s, released on CD, with brick-walled singles for radio. So there's really only so much you can do with the source material. That being said, I'm super excited about the rest of the Analog 75 series. I love all the vinyl so far that I've got, especially the 90s. A lot of these pressings have been hard, if not impossible to get. But if you ask me if it's the best sounding Atlantic 75 I have, I'd have to say no. It would probably be any one of these, like this one, or maybe this one. Oh, that one. Could be this one. Ooh, or this one. It's really good too. I have impulse control issues. Thanks for watching the VU Meters YouTube channel. If you like this video, please take time to give it a thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what pressings and releases you're excited for that are coming out. And let me know if you have any suggestions for things I should review on the channel in a future video. If you want to see more content like this, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you on the flip side.